What if the answer to an abandoned life lay hidden in a weathered cardboard box at the mercy of a bustling city? Picture a trembling puppy, racked by fear, stranded beneath neon storefronts and indifferent feet, its fate sealed by chance until a single passerby paused. Behind that unremarkable container lay a secret, an etched QR code on a battered collar, unread by the hurried masses, concealing the dog's true identity as a decorated search and rescue hero lost in the chaos of a distant disaster. When that code shattered the illusion of strayhood, it triggered a revelation more powerful than any cinematic twist: the transformation of a forgotten animal into a living testament of courage reborn. This is no stage-crafted drama. It is the unfolding of raw humanity, guided by the silent compassion of an actor renowned for his quiet generosity. In the space between abandonment and renewal, a chain reaction begins, linking one small act of kindness to the salvation of many. Stay with us as we unveil how a hidden truth in a single selfless gesture can redefine heroism, and why every life, however humble, may hold the power to save others. The city's heart pulsed with relentless energy as neon signs flickered on towering facades and traffic surged through gleaming avenues. Horns blared at impatient intersections, while the rumble of subway trains echoed beneath concrete canyons. Office workers, briefcases in hand, navigated slick sidewalks, heads bowed toward glowing screens. Delivery cyclists wove between rushing legs, their cargo boxes rattling with orders for coffee and takeout. In this symphony of urgency and motion, a small cardboard box sat forgotten at the curb's edge, its flaps brittle and stained, a silent witness to the flow of humanity that passed without pause. Inside that box crouched a trembling puppy no larger than a shoebox, its fur matted with grime and dust from the gutter. Once a warm, playful creature, it now huddled in fearful anticipation, eyes wide and searching for comfort in a world that had offered none. Each passing footstep reverberated like thunder, and the rustle of discarded wrappers seemed deafening against the hush of its fragile heartbeat. Head lowered, it pressed its shaking body against the cold cardboard wall, seeking a measure of shelter that the box itself could scarcely provide. The fluorescent glow from storefronts painted the scene in harsh contrasts. The stark white of delivery van headlights, the smeared orange of sidewalk lamps, and the pulsing blues and reds of emergency sirens in the distance. Distant laughter spilled from an upscale bar, clinking glasses and low music a jarring counterpoint to the puppy's soft whimpers. A luxury SUV rolled past on the wet pavement, its tinted windows reflecting the puppy's hollow stare back at itself. For a moment, the city seemed to hold its breath, the frenetic energy slowing as if acknowledging the tiny life perched at its margins. Above, digital billboards flashed advertisements for achievements and excess. High-rise condos promising panoramic views, exclusive gadgets promising connection, luxury cars promising status. Each message shone with triumphant confidence, but none offered sanctuary for the small soul cowering below. The puppy's ribs traced sharp lines beneath a coat dulled by rain and road grit, its paws pressed flat against the tarp at the box's base. It lifted its head only as long as necessary to glance at the sea of legs before quickly ducking back under the shelter of its cardboard haven. A cleaning crew swept past, the bristles of their brooms sending dust motes into the streetlight glow. Trash bins clanged open and closed in rhythmic beats, and the faint scent of garbage drifted on the humid air. Despite the chaos and carelessness, the puppy remained motionless, as if bound by desperation and confusion. An expired bus ticket lay beside the box, sodden and curling, the only human imprint marking this cold corner of the metropolis. Above the din, a traffic helicopter droned overhead, its searchlight scanning the avenues for news crews or missing persons. Neon storefronts displayed mannequins in poised perfection, each frozen form an ironic mirror to the living creature unseen by those who debated purchases and plans. An automated voice from a passing tram rattled through open windows, announcing the next stop, its sterile tones indifferent to the small drama unfolding on the wet sidewalk. Still, the puppy persisted, its slender tail curled tightly as if determined to preserve every last ounce of warmth. Its trembling subsided only slightly when a soft breeze carried the smell of freshly baked bread from a nearby bakery. Mouth watering at the scent, it rose on unsteady legs, sniffing the air for something edible. A stray coffee cup tumbled past, half filled and abandoned, but the puppy hesitated, uncertain whether this too might be a trap. In this blur of anonymity, the puppy occupied a space both central and invisible. It was the unwitting focal point of indifference and haste, yet it embodied vulnerability in its purest form. Each breath rose in small, misty clouds, visible in the cold night air, and each blink seemed to measure the distance between hope and despair. And though the city around it surged forward without notice, the trembling life in the cardboard box remained a poignant testament to all that goes unseen amid the relentless rush of urban existence. Keanu Reeves eased his unassuming SUV onto the quiet side street, the engine's soft purr barely interrupting the late evening hush that settled over the neighborhood. The glow of street lamps cast long, golden arcs across the asphalt, illuminating rows of parked cars and neatly trimmed hedges. He had just wrapped a long day of filming, the exhaustion in his bones tempered by the familiar comfort of routine. Yet as he rounded a corner, a faint, plaintive whimper reached his ears, slicing through the hum of distant traffic and the whisper of wind in the leaves. There, at the edge of the curb, half concealed by the shadow of an overgrown ivy vine, lay a small cardboard box stained with rain and city grime. From within came the sound of tiny, trembling sobs. Without hesitation, Reeves pressed the brake and guided the vehicle to a halt mere inches from the box. He stepped from the SUV in jeans and a dark jacket, his boots clicking softly against the pavement. The ambient noise of the street faded as he approached, the whimpers growing more urgent, more desperate. He crouched with deliberate calm and peered into the box's dim interior, revealing a fragile puppy, hardly larger than a loaf of bread, its fur matted in clumps of dirt and its wide eyes glistening with fear. The animal's ribs were etched sharply beneath filthy fur, and its body rocked on quivering legs with each breath. Reeves reached out a steady hand, his fingertips brushing the puppy's back in a gesture that spoke of reassurance rather than command. The puppy froze, ears folding back, but did not retreat. In that moment, wordless empathy passed between them, an understanding that transcended species and circumstance. With gentle care, Reeves lifted the puppy, supporting its small frame against his chest as if cradling a shard of broken world. The trembling subsided slightly under the warmth of his embrace, and the puppy's breathing steadied as it pressed closer to the protective barrier of his jacket. He returned to the SUV and opened the rear hatch with a sweep of his arm. The cargo area was lined with a soft blanket and a small travel bowl, items he had kept on hand for his own animal companions between shoots. Reeves placed the puppy inside, ensuring it lay comfortably on the blanket, then crouched beside the open hatch to offer a spill of water and a modest handful of kibble. The puppy, still cautious, lapped at the water and nibbled at the food with tentative eagerness, each motion a silent plea for kindness. Reeves watched, content to remain silent, his presence a steady anchor amid the puppy's storm of uncertainty. After securing the rear hatch, Reeves paused a moment under the streetlight's glow, casting a glance over his shoulder at the box he had left behind. The cardboard had served its grim purpose, but offered no sanctuary. With a gentle exhalation, he decided the box would be retrieved later. No debris or reminder of the night's discovery should remain where another helpless creature might be tempted. The SUV's engine thrummed back to life, and he eased into the driver's seat, one hand on the wheel and one lightly resting over the rear tire, as if assuring the puppy of his protection. The ride home unfolded in soft harmony. The hum of the engine, the puppy's quiet snores emerging as it settled into the warmth of its new refuge, and the streetlights flickering past like silent sentinels guiding them onward. Reeves navigated the familiar boulevards, unhurried yet purposeful, every turn bringing him closer to the safety of his residence and the promise of care for his newfound passenger. In the console's glow, he found the puppy's eyes peering up through the rearview mirror, curiosity and gratitude reflected in those dark, trusting orbs. By the time Reeves pulled into his driveway, the night had deepened into a velvet hush. He guided the SUV onto the gravel, the soft crunch of stones announcing their arrival. Inside, a warm foyer awaited, along with a prepared bed of blankets and a waiting bowl of fresh water. Reeves carried the puppy from the hatch to the threshold, lifted it gently as if carrying a treasure home, and set it down on the blankets with a tender nod. He watched as the puppy explored its new surroundings with cautious wonder, tail beginning to wag in small, hopeful arcs. In that quiet moment, Reeves stood back and allowed himself a brief, private smile. The world outside still pulsed with its relentless pace, but here, within these four walls, compassion had carved out a refuge. The unexpected guest had found a sanctuary, and a new chapter in both their lives had begun, one shaped not by fame or fortune, but by a single act of silent, steadfast solidarity. The animal shelter greeted them with the soft hum of ventilation and the gentle scent of antiseptic mixed with faint traces of fresh hay. Fluorescent lights overhead cast an even glow across gleaming tile floors and stainless steel wash stations. Rows of individual kennels lined one side of the large room, each separated by clear plexiglass doors and furnished with thick fleece blankets and raised beds. On the opposite wall, a row of sinks and counters stood ready for cleaning and treatment, while nearby cabinets held neatly organized towels, medical supplies, and labeled bottles of mild, pH-balanced puppy shampoo. Cameras affixed to high corners recorded every angle, their lenses unobtrusive yet vigilant, preserving the unspoken stories unfolding in this refuge. Keanu Reeves carried the trembling puppy to the wash area in the back of a clean veterinary van, stepping carefully over a raised threshold into the bright interior. He dressed in familiar dark jeans and a well-worn jacket, sleeves rolled up over a plain shirt, projecting quiet confidence and steady kindness. With deliberate gentleness, he placed the puppy into a shallow basin built for small animals. The dog's eyes, wide with uncertainty, flicked from Reeves's calm face to the cold metal sides of the sink. Reeves cradled the puppy's body with one hand, steadying it against the edge, while the other primed the faucet, allowing a thin ribbon of warm water to flow into the basin. The first droplets spattered the puppy's fur, sending a shiver through its small frame, but Reeves's touch remained soft and reassuring. He cupped a handful of water and guided it toward the puppy's head, letting it sluice down with gentle pressure, careful to avoid the eyes and ears. Each movement was measured, respectful of the puppy's fragility after days on the streets. As grime and dried mud surrendered to the sudsy lather, Reeves massaged in a fragrance-free shampoo, coaxing the dirt from the puppy's coat while his fingers traced the contours of tiny bones. The puppy leaned into the warmth, its quivering subsiding in response to the nurturing sensation. When the coat was fully saturated, Reeves allowed the basin to drain, then refilled it with clear, tepid water for rinsing. He maneuvered a soft cloth under the incoming stream, wiping away residual soap with sweeping strokes that mimicked a gentle rescue rather than a clinical procedure. With each rinse, the fur emerged cleaner, the puppy's coat color restored to a pale golden hue. Reeves lifted the puppy from the basin and wrapped it in a plush, absorbent towel. The puppy pressed into the fabric, its eyes closing briefly in relief as Reeves patted its back, absorbing the moisture and offering warmth. On the counter, a shallow bowl of fresh, clean water waited beside a stainless steel tray of soft, moistened puppy kibble. Reeves placed the puppy on a non-slip mat and set the bowl within reach. The puppy approached with cautious steps, sniffing the water's surface before dipping its snout to lap gently. After a few tentatively taken sips, it seized upon the food with growing enthusiasm, gobbling small mouthfuls and wagging its tail with a spark of life restored. Reeves observed from a slight distance, his posture relaxed as he ensured the puppy could feed without fear or interruption. The cameras recorded every nuance. The puppy's first confident strides on the rubberized floor, the gentle rise and fall of its body as it ate, and the transformation in its eyes from wary to curious. Staff moved quietly around the perimeter, whispering approvals as they monitored heart rates and hydration levels on digital readouts. A volunteer approached to record intake details, noting the puppy's weight, estimated age, and medical observations, all entered into the shelter's secure database. Reeves nodded appreciatively, then guided the puppy to a nearby kennel prepared with a soft pad and cozy blanket. Inside the kennel, the puppy lay down and curled into a tight ball, its eyes bright, yet heavy with exhaustion. It tested the bedding with a tentative paw before nestling into the folds, folding its head onto its front paws in contentment. Reeves reached through the open kennel door and stroked the puppy's back once more. A final gesture of reassurance before he stepped back. The puppy's breathing deepened, its tail thumping softly against the blanket as it drifted towards sleep, safe at last in a haven of warmth and care. Outside the kennel, Reeves straightened his jacket and took a moment to survey the bright, orderly space. Kennels born of despair now offered sanctuary, and the rescuers, human and canine, stood as partners in redemption. The first steps of rescue had been taken: a tender bath, a drink of clean water, a bowl of nourishing food, and a secure place to rest. And as the shelter's cameras continued their silent vigil, they captured not just an animal's transformation, but the beginning of a bond forged in compassion, a promise that life, once on the brink, would have every chance to flourish anew. Reeves paused at the edge of the kennel, bathing in the soft fluorescent glow that illuminated rows of animals reclaiming their vitality. The puppy, now resting comfortably on a fleece blanket, gazed back with brightened eyes and the tentative confidence of one beginning to heal. Reeves reached toward the puppy's slender neck, brushing aside tufts of damp fur to reveal a narrow collar fitted snugly around its throat. The garment bore a small metal tag embossed with a single QR code. Beneath the code, faint imprints of wear hinted at days, or perhaps weeks, of service beyond the city streets. Intrigued, Reeves retrieved his smartphone from a pocket and held it over the tag. Within seconds, the phone's camera locked onto the pattern of black and white pixels, triggering an alert to open a secure web link. Reeves's thumb swiped to confirm access, and the screen blossomed into a data page that detailed an official registry. A photograph of the puppy materialized at the top, a clearer, professionally lit shot labeling it as K9 Ranger Unit 47. The page identified the dog by name, accompanied by its microchip number and service record. According to the information, the puppy had been trained in search and rescue protocols under the auspices of a regional disaster response agency. Its training included locating survivors trapped beneath debris, indicating distress through alert behaviors, and assisting first responders in remote or unstable environments. The site listed a mission timeline. The animal had been deployed during a recent hurricane in a coastal region hundreds of kilometers away, but communications have been lost amid the storm's cataclysmic winds and flooding. Further down, a mission coordinator's note described efforts to track the animal's microchip and last known GPS pings. The search had been stymied by severe infrastructure damage and power outages, leaving the dog's fate uncertain until that morning. Reeves scrolled through archived reports and cross-checked the coordinates with relief maps, confirming the dog had vanished amidst overturned vehicles and collapsed buildings. The data stated that K9 Ranger Unit 47 was distinguished for locating survivors buried beneath rubble, earning commendations for bravery in extreme conditions. Its disappearance had weighed heavily on the agency, prompting emergency bulletins and appeals for public assistance in locating the missing rescue dog. Reeves's mind turned over the implications. This was no ordinary stray. It was a highly trained asset imbued with a mission to save lives in the world's most desperate moments. The puppy's instincts, honed through rigorous drills and real-world crises, now lay dormant under layers of street grime and fear, but in its eyes still glimmered the spark of resilience and purpose. Reeves glanced down at the animal, noting the subtle tension in its posture, as though it recognized an unspoken directive. Even without words, the puppy's gaze conveyed readiness to return to its calling. With deliberate calm, Reeves rose and crossed to a nearby workstation where staff files and communication consoles lay open. He keyed a secure login, retrieving the contact information for the shelter's volunteer coordinator and the regional disaster response agency. Drafting a concise message, he arranged to transfer the puppy into specialized care. Veterinary evaluation followed by immediate transport to the agency's reunification center. The process required cooperation between multiple jurisdictions, but Reeves's reputation expedited the clearances. As he confirmed the arrangements, he reflected on the chain of events that had led a lost service dog to an alleyway box and into his path. On a back shelf, Reeves located a neatly folded travel blanket and a padded rescue harness size for a young dog. He draped the harness over the puppy's back, securing the buckles with gentle pressure and adjusting the straps to fit snugly. The harness bore the agency's insignia and the label Ranger 47, embroidered in bold yellow thread. The puppy shifted beneath the new garment, its head lifting as if to test the weight. Reeves offered a small nod of approval. The puppy's body language relaxed, and it rose on all fours with a renewed sense of purpose. The shelter's sanctuary, once the arena for first breaths of safety, now played witness to a different kind of rebirth. Reeves closed the file on his phone, the screen dimming to reveal the sleek metal back. In that blackout, he sensed the transition from anonymous good deed to orchestrated rescue operation. The puppy's mission was not finished. It had merely been interrupted. Reeves gathered the equipment and prepared for departure, ensuring the puppy's medical records and training certifications were printed and ready for the agency's receiving unit. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast warm ribbons through the shelter's windows, and the puppy turned its gaze skyward, as if greeting the return of a calling suspended by chaos. Reeves placed the animal gently back into its kennel for a final moment of rest, securing the temporary identification tag to its collar. The puppy settled, tail thumping on the blanket in quiet anticipation. Reeves secured the shelter's paperwork and told the staff of the imminent transfer, his calm assurances steadying the volunteers who had grown fond of the small survivor. In that silent exchange, the puppy's secret was no longer a hidden truth, but a rallying cry for renewal. The animal's journey from disaster zone to city streets, from fear to unwavering resolve, embodied the essence of service unbroken by adversity. Reeves watched as a volunteer prepared the transport crate and administered a mild sedative to keep the puppy comfortable. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place, and the shelter's doors opened to admit the next phase of the rescue. As Reeves guided the puppy out through the automatic doors, the animal's stride, now confident and assured, spoke of a destiny reclaimed. Their path converged toward an awaiting vehicle emblazoned with agency markings, engines idling and lights ready to carry them to the reunification center. In that moment, the air held the promise of continuity, a secret revealed, a calling resumed, and a silent hero, both man and dog, marching together toward the next chapter of saving lives. Rescue coordinates flashed on Reeves's phone screen in crisp black text against a white background, the numbers pulsating as though urging immediate action. Each digit corresponded to a stretch of desolate terrain battered by landslides and raging floodwaters. A remote valley where collapsed homes and fractured roads lay strewn across miles of uneven earth. The puppy, snug in its padded harness, sensed the urgency and pressed closer to Reeves's side as they loaded into the waiting all-terrain vehicle alongside the canine handler, a seasoned rescuer who had first trained the dog in distant disaster zones. The engine roared to life, its rumble shaking loose gravel as the convoy of rugged SUVs and a rugged utility helicopter lifted off in a choreographed burst of purpose and precision. Windswept hills rolled past in a blur of muddy browns and sagging green vegetation, the landscape scarred by torrents of rain that had gouged deep gullies into the soft soil. The helicopter's downdraft stirred swirling clouds of dust and debris, rendering the descent zone a chaotic maelstrom until the pilot coaxed the craft into a hover above a makeshift landing pad carved from swampy ground. Reeves and the handler disembarked swiftly, the puppy at their heel, its paws sinking into the soggy earth as it sniffed the air for the faintest hint of human scent. Medical tents with bright orange tarps flapped in the wind, while off-road vehicles with flashing amber lights navigated around fallen power lines and shattered telephone poles. In the distance, a cluster of survivors huddled beneath a precarious overhang, their faces drawn with exhaustion and hope in equal measure. The puppy wasted no time. Nose to the ground, it followed faint scent trails through debris-strewn paths that machines and humans alike would have found impassable. Reeves and the handler closed the distance with measured steps, giving the dog space to navigate. Broken beams and uprooted trees formed a labyrinth of obstacles that tested the puppy's agility and training. Yet weaved confidently between hazards, ears pricked and tail held high. Each step the puppy took broke new ground, literally and figuratively, revealing hidden pockets where survivors had taken refuge amid rubble and standing water. Moments later, the puppy's rapid, excited bark echoed through the ruins, a signal that cut through the pervasive silence of despair. Reeves sprinted forward, boots splashing through puddles, and found a group of 3 injured villagers huddled behind a collapsed section of wall. The handler knelt beside them, assessing wounds and administering first aid from a compact kit, while the puppy settled next to a young mother whose arm bore a deep gash. Its quiet presence radiated reassurance. The terrified woman reached out to stroke its clean, warm fur, her face breaking into a tentative smile that spread like dawn across her features. Nearby, medics transported survivors onto stretchers, the puppy guiding each stretcher to awaiting ambulances with an uncanny precision that spoke to its specialized training. Reeves coordinated the evacuation, directing vehicles to the nearest helipad and overseeing the distribution of supplies, bottled water, emergency blankets, and ration packs. The valley resounded with the hum of rotors and the chatter of radios as medical triage unfolded under makeshift awnings. Reeves moved among the teams, offering quiet nods and steady encouragement, his calm authority preventing panic and ensuring order amidst the whirlwind of activity. The first evacuation flight lifted off as the sun broke through storm clouds, shafts of golden light illuminating the battered landscape below. Survivors aboard the helicopter pressed against the windows, gazing down at the world they had feared lost. Reeves watched until the craft receded into the sky, then turned to see the puppy standing proudly on a slab of concrete, chest out and eyes bright. Around them, the chaos of rescue had been transformed into a symphony of hope. Weary hands clasped in gratitude, the hush of controlled breathing, the gentle rustle of plastic blankets catching the breeze. In that charged atmosphere, Reeves allowed himself a moment of recognition for the puppy's role. It had been a solitary figure in a discarded box, but had emerged as the spark that ignited the rescue. The valley, once echoing with the hollow wind of abandonment, now teemed with determined humanity bound by a common purpose. Children waved from sunlit corners, their laughter mingling with the steady thrum of relief operations. The puppy trotted back to Reeves's side, its mission momentarily complete, ears perked for the next call to action. As the final survivors were loaded onto ground transports, Reeves and the handler gathered the rescue team for a silent salute, a gesture of unity that needed no words. The puppy, fur gleaming in the brightening sky, offered a happy wag of its tail as if acknowledging the triumph. In the space between destruction and deliverance, between fear and fidelity, there exploded a surge of hope more powerful than any storm. A hope carried on 4 paws and the steadfast determination of those who refused to leave another soul behind. The sun had climbed higher, bathing the makeshift camp in a warm, forgiving light that contrasted sharply with the raw devastation at its edges. Where once homes had stood, Only fractured foundations and piles of splintered wood remained. Dust hung in the air like a shroud, stirred by the constant movement of rescue teams. Amidst this scene of ruin, the puppy, now clearly identifiable as K9 Ranger Unit 47, led the search and rescue group with renewed purpose. Its harness, adorned with reflective stripes and the emblem of the Regional Disaster Response Agency, glinted in the sunlight as it trotted confidently over uneven ground. Reeves stood to one side, his hands folded calmly behind his back, observing the puppy's every maneuver. The animal paused at the edge of a collapsed brick wall, nose twitching as it detected faint human scent. It circled the rubble, then signaled by pawing at a gap in the debris. Instantly, a handler and two rescuers approached with tools and stretchers, carefully prying away loose bricks. Beneath the rubble lay an elderly man, unconscious but breathing, his presence confirmed by the puppy's excited bark and the gentle nudge of its nose against the man's shoulder. The rescuers worked with disciplined urgency, stabilizing the man on a makeshift board and carrying him to the medical tent where paramedics awaited with oxygen masks and intravenous fluids. That singular rescue marked the puppy's first live save since its rediscovery. Each subsequent alert followed a familiar pattern. The puppy sniffed out hardened edges of broken floors, indicated trapped individuals with gentle but insistent nudges, and watched over every extraction with protective vigilance. Reeves moved with the group as they methodically cleared zones. Volunteers cleared debris under direction, and engineers rigged temporary supports to prevent further collapses. The puppy's presence brought a measure of comfort to survivors who had spent anguished hours awaiting help. Children emerging from a damaged shelter ran toward the puppy, their fear giving way to delight as they petted its clean fur and whispered words of gratitude. At the perimeter of the site, supply trucks delivered aid, crates of bottled water, thermal blankets, and ready-to-eat meals. Reeves helped unload pallets, then paused to sign autographs on helmets and wave kindly to the weary volunteers. His observant gaze remained fixed on the puppy, whose unwavering focus guided the rhythm of the operation. Each time the puppy completed an alert, Reeves offered a reassuring nod, a silent exchange of respect for the dog's unwavering competence. As the afternoon progressed, the pace of rescues slowed. Hope took the place of desperation. In one final sweep, the puppy led a small team to a collapsed silo where the faint cry of a child emanated from beneath twisted metal beams. The rescuers excavated carefully, and soon a young boy, covered in dust but otherwise unharmed, emerged into the light, pressing himself into the puppy's warmth. Reeves knelt to cloak the child in a blanket, offering a comforting presence as paramedics checked vital signs. With the last survivor safely evacuated, a hushed calm descended over the site. The puppy, its harness now smudged with dust and grime, stood at the center of a semicircle of rescuers. Reeves approached and gently stroked its head, his expression one of quiet pride and profound gratitude. In that swift, wordless gesture lay an acknowledgement. This small creature had reclaimed its destiny and, alongside humanity's finest, had become a true hero. As evening shadows stretched across the debris field, the puppy settled onto a tarp softened by blankets, surrounded by the people it had helped save. Reeves stood nearby, arms crossed in reflective stillness, his presence both witness and participant in a chain of compassion that had begun with a single act of rescue. In the silent bond between man and dog, between stranger and stranger, the seed of a new hero was fully realized, a testament to the power of mercy and the truth that acts of kindness, no matter how small, can spark a revolution of hope.